Hi everyone, how are you? I hope you're all doing well. In Minnesota, we had what turned out to be a very, very sad story of a super good Minnesota young mom named Maddie, Madeline Jane Kingsbury. Now, I have started my playlist, so this will be first in the playlist, and then you can listen to the other parts of the playlist where all of these documents were still sealed. So the details were not there to be told until literally just a couple of days ago. What happened was we had a huge blizzard on April 1st. Madeline had went missing the day prior. Was it the day prior, the night prior? And we had this huge blizzard. So what news the national news that caught this didn't really realize is that, yeah, in April we had blizzards here in Minnesota. So that put a big damper in locating where her boyfriend, Adam, had traveled because the visibility was down to zero. And the State Patrol had a warning that they didn't want anybody driving on the roads. They were so bad they couldn't catch up with any of the wrecks. They were so bad, and you couldn't get anywhere. We were stuck a few cities down, and it took us like 4 hours to get home. It was horrible. So it is believed, and we'll find it in here, where Adam sadly disposed of Madeline's body. And because the snowfall that hit and then there was subsequent flooding, it took a while to find her body. When the news came out with her being missing, they basically said that she'd been on the phone with her sister, had plans, didn't show up. She dropped her children off at daycare and then went missing. Nothing else. As the next couple of weeks went through, the national media picked it up because there were a couple other similar stories where they said, look, a mom dropping off her children at daycare went missing. And then it came out that she was a researcher for the Mayo Clinic. So then this case got national attention, going, okay, what was she researching? And was there somebody who didn't like what she was researching? They start going down the conspiracy theories. We had nothing else that we were being told. So, as such, some of the people who take advantage of stories that hit the national headlines, they got involved and they started being very problematic. And I have talked about that, and that is in the playlist. So that's a component to the story. Right away, the children were taken into protective custody. Adam Fravel is the father to Madeline's two children. So one would infer, why couldn't he keep the children? What's going on? The van that he was driving was also impounded. When the children were taken from him, he didn't even know which car seat that each child went into. It was apparent that he wasn't a very hands-on father. So a few weeks into it, the Facebook detectives had found that Maddie had posted that she was looking for another place to move to during that time frame. So then people were like, what? She was leaving? She was trying to find a place to go to? What was going on? So then I stated that in a relationship, when one person is moving out, you have to be careful. It is the time where the emotions are the highest, and there's a very real risk, and it's referred to as separation assault. So even if you were in a relationship and there had not been domestic violence previous to that point, there's a risk of separation assault. It's the end of a relationship and emotions are high, and you should not do things alone. You should always let somebody know or have somebody with you. Be very careful in those situations. We still didn't know anything. Ultimately, when Maddie's body was found, it was found in an area where her boyfriend was known to have hung out at it as a child. So he is arrested. He is believed, her family believes that he is the one who unalived Maddie. So they believe that he's where he needs to be, and there will be a trial. But there still was nothing set. There was still very little information about what had really gone on. We knew that Maddie was an amazing mother, that she lived for her children, that she was just a great girl, going to Winona State University, and had a great job, just a girl with a really good head on her shoulders, and loved nothing more than doing crafts with her children, and loved birthday parties so much that for her own birthday party, she'd be planning the next year's birthday party. Her father said that. Still nothing. And then this week, the documents became unsealed, and it was revealed that, sadly, there was domestic violence in the relationship, and Maddie had been fearful to go to the courts and involve the courts to report what was going on, and she didn't want the children to be involved, and that's a fear. In some states, if there's domestic violence going on and there are children in the home, you can lose custody of your children if you do not have the abuser leave the house with a protective order on yourself and your children. So she was fearful, was trying to take things into her own hands. We found out this week that Adam had an obsession with the Gabby Petito case. And there's some very, very sad things that happened to her. And so now that everything is unsealed, I have everything, and I'd like to go through and show you everything that we know to this point. And it may take me 2 recordings to do, and then I will be present for in-person hearings and for the trial. And I will give you all of the in-person information. And I think that from my coverage of the Katie Joy hearing, I think that you can maybe glean that I do a pretty good job of setting the scene for others. If they're not there, they can kind of get a feel for the courtroom, if you will. So, to be totally transparent, I went back and I looked at Madeline's history, civil and criminal, in the state, and Adam's, so that we can see exactly what's going on here and have everything be as forthcoming as possible to show this is this, this is this. So when I found this, all I found on Maddie, she's just like I say, a really, good mom, no criminal history whatsoever. The only thing that she has is she has on her record, she had a petty misdemeanor in 2018. She was convicted of a petty misdemeanor for speeding in excess of 30 miles. She pled guilty and was convicted. She needed to pay a fee of $145. The The fine was $60, and then the fees were $85. Additional court costs, a surcharge $75. The law library $10. Convicted of a petty misdemeanor, and let's see, so it went over here, and ultimately was $175. Now, what also came out this week was that Maddie was the sole breadwinner. She was making the money, he wasn't working. So she was doing everything, taking care of the children, supporting them fully, and him. So in her mind, she was just going to go her own way. He wanted her to move closer to his family, and she did not want to do that. So we have here this fine, and I saw here that, so when, sorry, I wish this would stay up here. When you have a court hearing or a court case, it'll give you kind of everything that's went on in the case. So she didn't pay that fine, and there was a late notice sent. So we have that, and we have the late notice here, and the late notice. So it went through to January 3rd, 2019, and so she was sent this saying, you got to pay over there at the Willmar court. And I covered up the address just because. And ultimately, there's nothing else. So she has no criminal history other than being a little bit late on paying for the ticket for speeding in excess of 30 miles. And that's it. Okay. So ultimately, she paid it. So the citation was e-filed. So it was on November 28th, 2018 is when she was charged with speeding in excess of 30 miles. So convicted of a petty misdemeanor. So speed payable without an blah, 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 citation. And then it says driver's license suspension request for failure to appear. She failed to appear, or she failed to pay the fine, and then a second penalty was added, and then the conviction was stated. So she didn't go to court, it sounds like, and then her driver's license was reinstated. So I just wonder, was money a problem? Because here's a super responsible girl, super just the salt of the earth. You just wouldn't think that she'd get a speeding ticket for going over 30 miles an hour over the posted speed limit and then not pay that fine. So she was living in a townhouse, rather modest townhouse. So just one has to wonder, how did this story get so mixed up from all of a sudden being, this researcher that, in a national case to, what? She was basically a single mother, really having a hard time staying in school and having a job and having a boyfriend who wasn't helping financially. So there might not have been money to pay this. I mean, she probably had to pay for daycare in addition to everything else. And she has a great supportive family. So I just wonder if she didn't let them know this was going on. And it just kind of got out of hand, because it doesn't seem like she's the type who would have a ticket like that and a driver's license temporarily suspended. Doesn't seem like her character at all. So then you kind of look into it and you're going, okay, well, was it during one of the fights? And was she trying to get away from him? I really wonder what else is, kind of not stated here. So then when I looked up Adam Taylor Fravel, and he is now in jail. This is not his address anymore, and this is in the Register of Actions, and it gives everything on the case for careless driving, not for what he's in jail for right now. So his birthday is 1/29/94. So he also got a careless driving. Well, hers wasn't careless. Hers was going over the speed limit, 30 miles over. So his is careless driving, a misdemeanor, and it got dismissed. But he took it all the way to a court hearing. He said, you know what, bring your officer, have them bring their equipment. I'm going to get an attorney, and we're going to challenge this. So because whereas, she got her ticket, she didn't even, go to court on it, paid the fee, paid the extra fee. And then you got him, and he's like, oh no, you're going to do this. We're going to take it all the way. Kind of might speak to the differences in temperament. So he was charged with careless driving, and ultimately, when he took it to the point of a trial, he had the case dismissed. So he went there and he had a certificate of representation, a request for hearing, the service, the notice of hearing, demand for discovery, and a not guilty letter. And like I say, he went all the way. And because it goes here, and then we have the hearing and the witness list and notice of evidence and identification procedures, a pretrial conference, and then ultimately the pretrial and a dismissal by the prosecuting attorney pursuant to Rule 30.01. And the jury trial was ultimately canceled because the charges were dismissed. So came over here, we were in 2018. That's when she got her ticket as well. Okay, so something was going on with both of them at that time. Hers was, she gets her ticket 11/28/2018. 2018. And then, because their children are, I think they're 4 and 2, so they were definitely together then. And his was 9/19/2018. So something is going on with both of them at that time where it seems like maybe their stress level was higher. That they both have no previous criminal history. They've got this going on at this time. Something's going on. What does it have to do with what happened? I don't know. It just seems like where there's smoke, there's fire in this case. He retained an attorney. He did everything. And he got the defendant's request for disclosure. He was going to take the officer all the way to trial, which, the state of Minnesota. So he took the state of Minnesota versus Adam Taylor Fravel. And ultimately, his attorney, J.P. Plocheski, says, Dear Court Administration, please be advised that I represent Mr. Fravel on the above charges scheduled for an arraignment on Friday, November 2nd, 2018 at 8 o'clock. Please enter a not guilty plea and reset this matter for a default evidentiary hearing. Thank you for your courtesies. Oh, okay. So we went here. And then there was a hearing date scheduled for January 17th, 2019 for the jury trial. And this is the file copy for him, for the notice of the hearing. We got state of Minnesota versus Adam Taylor Fravel, notice of the prosecuting attorney of evidence and identification procedures pursuant to Rule 7.01. And this is to the above named defendant and or his attorney. They wanted confessions, admissions, or statements in the nature of confessions made by the defendant, and other things that were employed in the following identification procedures in this investigation were other observations of the defendant. Okay, so we've got that. And then we had the state proposed witness and exhibit list. So what they wanted to have here is they wanted Deputy Derek Heyer from the Winona County Sheriff's Office, Deputy Les Ladowig from the Winona County Sheriff's Office, Trooper David Borden from the Minnesota State Patrol, Mr. Chad Shushow, a civilian in Winona, and please be advised that the plaintiff may submit the following exhibits, and they may exhibit the squad audio and video and photographs. And that was submitted. So, you know what? He's like, you know what? If you found me doing this, you got to prove it. Took it all the way. That's a duplicate here. And then ultimately, it says the state of Minnesota hereby dismisses the charges in the above named case for the following reasons. And the following reason cited was interests of justice. Okay, interests of justice. There we go. And that's all. That's all that we have for either Maddie or Adam. They don't have anything, any type of criminogenic past. We don't know a lot about him. We know more about her. Her service was beautiful. She's got just an amazing, amazing family. And right now, Adam is charged with murder in the second degree. And that is as a felony. And that was dated 3/31/2023. So that's the date of, I think, when it happened. I think we're going to find that as we go in here. So we have this register of actions that shows everything that goes from June 9, 2023 all the way over. And we have everything listed as they are getting ready for trial. I believe he was arrested and then released on his own recognizance before they found her body. And now we have over here, we have the statute and offense grid. So we have the offense date of 3/31/2023. So maybe in here we'll find out that maybe that's what he's confessed to. We have to see. I did not peek ahead. I know what the news has said this week, and I wanted to see it with my own eyes and share that with you as well. So it says here that on 3/31/2023, he wasn't charged on these dates, but this is when they believe the murder was committed. So murder in the second degree with intent and not premeditated. Now it says charge and then it says penalty. It says murder in the second degree. Now, it says murder in the second degree without intent while committing a felony. Murder in the second degree without intent while committing a felony. So they have, I'm not gonna tell you what it said, what I read, because I don't want to take anything out of text, but I think I know why they did that. So we have our complaint here. And our complaint here is in the district court in the 3rd Judicial District. This is a complaint for order of detention from the state of Minnesota, which is the plaintiff versus Adam Taylor Fravel. And his former address is listed because he is now in jail. And it says the complainant submits this complaint to the court and states that there is probable cause to believe defendant committed the following offenses. Count 1, murder in the second degree. Minnesota statute 609-19-1 with reference to 609-19-1 with a maximum sentence of 40 years in prison. The offense level is a felony and the offense date was on or about 3/31/2023. The charge description is that on or about March 31st, 2023 in Winona County, Minnesota, Adam Taylor Fravel caused the death of a human being with intent to the effect that the death of the person or another, but without premeditation. We're going to see that there's maybe something that's going to contradict that. So keep that in the back of your head here. And then we go to charge murder in the second degree, which is count 2. And we have the charge description that on or about March 31st, 2023, in Winona County, Minnesota, Adam Taylor Fravel caused the death of a human being without intent to the effect the death of any person while committing or attempting to commit a felony offense other than criminal sexual conduct in the first or second degree with force or violence or drive-by shooting. Okay. So here we go with our probable cause statements. On March 31st, 2023, at approximately 8:20 p.m., the Winona Police Department was contacted by a person who identified herself as a friend of Madeline Jane Kingsbury, date of birth 6/1/1996. The friend reported to police that she was concerned with the health and safety of Madeline. According to the friend, Madeline had not attempted to contact or communicate with her throughout the day, which the friend indicated was unusual. The friend was concerned and had gone to Madeline's residence, saw her minivan in the driveway and knocked on the door, and no one responded. The friend also told police that she was aware that Madeline was having issues with her significant other who also lived at the residence. The friend identified the significant other as Adam Fravel. Winona police officers met the friend at Madeline's residence located in Winona County, Minnesota. An officer knocked on the door of the residence and looked in the windows, and no one responded, and the officer did not see anyone inside. Shortly thereafter, officers spoke with Madeline's father on the telephone and learned that her family had also not had any contact with her that day. The father reported that it was uncharacteristic for Madeline not to have had contact with family members or friends. A Winona police officer spoke with Adam Taylor Fravel, date of birth 1/29/1994, by telephone. According to Fravel, he had not heard from Madeline since early in the morning, that she was supposed to pick up their children at their Winona daycare after she finished working, but she did not. Fravel stated that he picked up the children at the daycare and took them to his parents' residence in Mabel, Minnesota. Later that evening, officers were able to conduct a welfare check inside the Winona residence and determined that no one was inside the residence. Law enforcement investigators have spoken with the children's daycare provider who confirmed that both Madeline and Fravel were present when they dropped their children off at daycare in the morning of March 31st, 2023 at approximately 8:05 a.m. The daycare provider also stated that Fravel was alone when he picked up the children at the end of the day. Okay, so that's our time frame. When the children were dropped off, the way that this came out, his initial alibi was that Maddie came home and said she wasn't feeling well and wasn't going to go into work, and he went and did errands, something like that. But sounds like there's something a little different here. On April 1st, 2023, law enforcement investigators obtained a search warrant for the Madeline/Fravel residence in Winona. The interior of the residence was cluttered, but there did not appear to be overt signs of a struggle. During the search, law enforcement officers located what investigators later determined to be Madeline's cell phone, jacket, and purse in the residence. Investigators also located a laptop computer that investigators later determined was Madeline used to work from home. Investigators later obtained access to the cell phone's databases. It was determined that a text message was sent from the cell phone to Madeline's sister on March 31st, 2023 at 8:15 a.m. Investigators noted that there was no subsequent text messages or phone calls sent from Madeline's cell phone. Law enforcement investigators had follow-up conversations with Adam Fravel on April 1st and April 2nd, 2023. During these conversations, Fravel told investigators that he had met Madeline at college in Winona and that they have had an on-again and off-again relationship over the past 7 years. Fravel stated that they have 2 children, ages 5 and 2. Fravel indicated that Madeline worked from home and in Rochester, Minnesota. Fravel stated Madeline would generally travel to Rochester for work on Mondays and Fridays. And Fravel acknowledged that Madeline was the primary income producer for the family, and she would forward him money electronically to pay the family bills. Fravel acknowledged that recently their relationship was not working, so they had decided to separate and were in the process of moving out of their Winona residence. Madeline had been looking at different apartments in the area for her and the children to live in. Fravel indicated that about 2 weeks ago, Madeline had told him that she had begun a relationship with another man, but that he did not know how long the relationship had been going on. Fravel stated that on Friday, March 31st, 2023, together, he and Madeline dropped their children at daycare at around 8 a.m., and they drove home. Once they arrived, Madeline stated that she had an online meeting and afterwards was going to Rochester for work. He indicated he observed Madeline go downstairs to her home office. Okay. Well, that's just a little different than what they were telling the public right there, too. Also, during the conversations, Fravel stated that he had planned to do property storage runs most of the day. His plan was to travel to his parents' home near Mabel, Minnesota, with the items he wanted to store at his parents' residence, and return to Winona and take items to Midwest Storage located in Winona. Fravel indicated that prior to leaving for Mabel, he had stopped at a gas station near his Winona residence. He said that when he loaded up Madeline's van, he wasn't really paying attention to what he was loading. Fravel believed he left his residence and began driving the van to Mabel at approximately 10:15 a.m. Wait a minute. They only have one vehicle. This is problematic as it is, because they only have that van. And he took that van. If she said that she was going to go for an online meeting and then drive in, because that was that Friday, yeah, they would already have problems with this story. We knew that he passed a gas station. Now, where this is down in Mabel, Minnesota, this whole area is very, very rural. So there's not surveillance. There's very few businesses, very few traffic lights. So when the national people were looking into it, they were like, well, why can't this be a resource? Why aren't they looking at this? Why aren't they looking at that? Well, that's because this is a very small rural town in rural Minnesota. And we know that this happened, but again, the weather was bad and the next day there was the blizzard. Fravel believed he left his residence and began driving the van to Mabel at approximately 10:15 a.m. Fravel continued with the following information. Fravel stated that when he got to Choice, an area in Fillmore County, he started thinking about what he was going to do. He said he looked to the rear of the van and realized the items he had were meant to be stored at the storage unit, not his parents' place. He turned around in the driveway of a barn in Choice and drove back to his residence in Winona. Fravel believed he arrived at the residence at about 11:30 a.m. and emptied the van at the Madeleine Fravel residence. Fravel stated that he did not make any stops on his trip to and from Choice. When he entered the residence, he did not see Madeleine. He stated he did notice his car was still home and thought that Madeleine may have carpooled to Rochester. Okay, so this tells me he has a car. They made it sound like they only had a van, so he had a car too. Okay. Fravel stated that he remained at the residence for the remainder of the afternoon, and during this time he texted Madeleine but never got a response. Eventually, he went downstairs and Madeleine was not there. He stated that he texted Madeleine regarding picking up the kids and asked about plans for supper. When she did not respond, he decided to pick up the children at daycare and drive them to his parents' residence in Mabel. Also during their conversations with Fravel, law enforcement disclosed to Fravel a concerned person's report that Fravel told Madeleine that if she didn't listen up, she would end up like Gabby Petito. Fravel admitted being infatuated with the Gabby Petito case. Fravel also admitted that he made a statement to Madeleine about her ending up like Gabby Petito. Fravel claimed he was trying to make a joke. The Gabby Petito case made national news. It was the story of a 22-year-old woman who went missing. After extensive searches, Petito's remains were found in a park near a park in Wyoming. It was reported that Petito died of strangulation, and the media also reported that Petito's fiancé claimed responsibility for her death in a notebook. Investigating officers spoke with a friend of Madeleine who indicated that sometime in 2020 or 2021 she was on a video call with Madeleine, who was at her Winona residence. Madeleine was standing up, holding one of her children and cooking dinner. The friend observed Fravel enter the room and yell at Madeleine to keep quiet. Madeleine asked Fravel to calm down, and he stated that he was not going to calm down and struck Madeleine in the face with his hand. It appeared that Fravel was not aware he was being observed on the video call, as when the friend yelled at Fravel over the video, he immediately left the room. The friend told investigators that there were several times during video calls that she observed bruises on Madeleine's face. When the friend inquired about the bruises, Madeleine would cover them with her sweater. Okay, so this is why she was afraid, because that was one of the things that was observed. If you're okay, she's holding the baby and she was assaulted. Right there, that's a CPS case. That's a child protective matter. And if she would not have taken action, then she could be in danger of losing her children if she did not make a choice to get rid of him. As she's in a very rural area, you would hope that there would have been resources would have worked with her to have helped her make a safety plan. But if a friend observed this and didn't report this to the police, it's sad. You have to wonder why Maddie didn't want this reported. Was she ashamed, embarrassed? Probably scared that he'd kill her. This poor girl. Investigators spoke with a family member of Madeleine's. During that conversation, the family member discussed an earlier incident. The family member said that she learned Fravel put his hands around Madeleine's throat. The family member went with another person to go and get Madeleine. The family member noted Madeleine had a red mark on the side of her neck that day. Pursuant to search warrants, investigating officers conducted forensic extractions on 2 Apple iPhones believed to belong to Madeleine. A review of the forensic extractions of those two phones revealed Kingsbury as the owner and user. There were messages as well as screenshots of messages between Madeleine and Fravel, dating back numerous years. One screenshot taken on September 21st, 2021, contained the following iMessage conversation between the Madeleine and Fravel. That's the way it says it, between the Madeleine and Fravel. Okay, it goes like this. Maddie, you know I'm not really okay or over the fact that you put... Okay. Conversation between the Madeleine and Fravel. So it looks like Maddie, the way they did this, was like between the Madeleine and Fravel. Maddie, it looks like Maddie must have wrote this. She said, you know I'm not really okay with or over the fact that you put your hand around my neck and pushed me down in front of the kids earlier, so don't. Oh, God, how sad. Maddie said, not okay with it all, but especially with them there. And Fravel said, you'll adjust. Maddie said, the fuck I will. Maddie said, you do that again without asking me and you can go somewhere else. Fravel says, you got it, mother. Maddie says, don't patronize me. That crossed a line. Fravel said, then mind. And she said, stop. Oh, my God. Law enforcement investigators were able to obtain videos from the security cameras and motion detection video devices at multiple residences and businesses located in the Winona neighborhood where Madeleine Kingsbury and Adam Fravel resided, and along the route Fravel stated he took towards his parents' residence that morning of March 31st, 2023. The videos reveal the following events from March 31st, 2023. Okay, that's more than they kept this really, really close to the vest. They acted like they didn't have anything. They wanted the public to call in to say if they saw him driving. They mentioned the van, but they weren't really coming forth with the license plate. So I think that when they put out the information that they wanted people to call in and acting like they didn't know, they must have known more, but they were trying to find out where he went. So, the videos reveal the following events from March 31st, 2023. 9:44 a.m. Madeleine's van is observed in the driveway of the Madeleine Fravel residence in Winona. A person in a light-colored coat is observed walking up to the front of the van, bends over, and appears to remove the front license plate on the van. At 9:47 a.m., the van is still in the driveway, and the same person is observed kneeling in front of the van and appears to be reinstalling a license plate. We took it off and then he put it back on? 9:55 a.m. A person wearing a light-colored coat or sweatshirt gets into Madeleine's van while it is parked in the driveway of the Madeleine Fravel residence in Winona. It says Madeleine/Fravel. It should be Kingsbury/Fravel, but, 10 o'clock a.m. The van is no longer at the residence. Okay. 10:02. The van is observed parked at the gas station where Fravel said he had gotten gas, and a person wearing a light-colored jacket and matching the general description of Adam Fravel is observed pumping gas. Investigators also noted that the license plate on the van matches the license plate registered to the car Fravel normally drives and not the plate registered to the van. Aha. So that's what was going on, why they didn't really say anything about the van license plate. Well played, investigators, well played. Investigating officers noticed that when they observed the van later in the evening on March 31st and on April 1st, 2023, the license plates registered to the van were back on the van. 10:31. The van is observed backed into the driveway at the Madeline Fravel residence in Winona. 11:26 a.m. The van is observed driving away from the residence. 11:44 a.m. A van matching the description of Madeline's van is observed traveling southbound on Highway 43 in the direction of Rushford and Mabel, Minnesota. 11:56 a.m. A van matching the description of Madeline's van is observed traveling southbound on Highway 43 and in the direction of Mabel. Okay, so we've got 11:44 and 11:46. They've got two observations. 11:59, a van matching the description of Madeline's van is observed traveling southbound on Highway 43 south of Rushford and then in the direction of Choice and Mabel, Minnesota. Okay, 12:44 p.m., approximately 45 minutes later, a van matching the description of Madeline's van is observed on a video from the same location traveling northbound on Highway 43 in the direction of Rushford and Winona. And at 12:47 p.m., a van matching the description of Madeline's van is observed traveling northbound on Highway 43 in Rushford. At 1 o'clock, a van matching the description of Madeline's van is observed traveling northbound on Highway 43 and turned east onto Winona County Road 12 in the direction of Winona. At 1:28 p.m., a van matching the description of Madeline's van is observed in the driveway of her Winona residence. As part of their investigation, law enforcement officers traveled the route Fravel stated he drove on the morning of March 31st, 2023. Investigators noted that with the exception of the 45-minute time period between the time he is observed traveling south of Rushford on Highway 43 and later at the same location traveling northbound on Highway 43, the times are consistent with normal expected travel times between the locations. On June 7, 2023, a deputy with the Fillmore County Sheriff's Office was searching a rural area in Fillmore County next to a public gravel road approximately 1 mile from Highway 43 between Choice and Mabel, Minnesota. Investigating officers learned that this property had been routinely maintained by one or more Fravel family members. This property was also near the residence of Fravel's parents. While searching the property, the deputy located human remains in a culvert adjoining the gravel road. The remains had been wrapped in what appeared to be a gray fitted bedsheet that had been closed with black Gorilla Tape. Investigators noted that during a previous search of the Madeline Fravel Winona residence, they observed a roll of black Gorilla Tape that appears to be the same color and width as the tape found on the fitted sheet that Madeline was wrapped in. Investigators also noted that the gray fitted sheet appears to be similar to other bedding at the Winona residence. Additionally, the air mattress from the Winona residence was missing a fitted sheet. On top of the air mattress without a fitted sheet were pillows that had gray pillowcases. The human remains were transferred to the Southern Minnesota Regional Medical Examiner's Office in Rochester, Minnesota. The medical examiner's office identified the human remains as Madeline Jane Kingsbury from dental records and tattoos. The medical examiner noted that a knotted towel had been wrapped around Madeline's head and neck. The medical examiner's office performed an autopsy. A preliminary autopsy report determined the manner and cause of death as homicide and homicidal violence. Please take notice pursuant to Minnesota Stat 609.49. Intentional failure to appear for duty scheduled court appearances may result in additional criminal charges and in addition to any arrest warrant that may be otherwise issued by the court. This is where I'm having a problem with their charging him with second degree without intent, with the timing, the threats he did, and the towel. This is the problem I have with this. I think it's first degree. Complainant requests that defendants subject to bail or conditions of release be 1. Arrested, or that lawful steps be taken to obtain defendant's appearance in court, or 2. Detained, if already in custody, pending further proceedings, and that said defendant otherwise will be dealt with according to law. Complainant declares under penalty of perjury that everything stated in this document is true and correct. In Minnesota Statute 358.116 in Minnesota our Criminal Procedure 2.01 1 and 2. And the complainant is Thomas J. Williams, the chief. So he must be the chief of police, because it says Thomas J. Williams, chief. And it has the Winona address on 3rd Street, and it says badge number 123. And being authorized to prosecute the offenses charged, I approve this complaint. And it is signed by the prosecuting attorney, Karen Sonneman. And she is also on 3rd Street in Winona. So here's the finding of probable cause. So they had the probable cause, the summons and the warrant, and the order of detention. And that was signed on the 9th, as was the complainant. And the defendant fact sheet is here that Adam Taylor Fravel is there, and that was his address in Mabel. Must be where they served him, and he is a male, and he was fingerprinted, and his driver's license. And now the notice of judicial assignment is that this is a file copy saying that the state of Minnesota versus Adam Taylor Fravel is reassigned to Judge Nancy Beutendorp, and that's on West 3rd Street in Winona, and all future hearings shall be scheduled before this judicial officer. Please note that a notice to remove this judicial officer must comply in adult criminal cases with Minnesota Rules of Criminal Procedure 26.03, Subdivision 14, and Minnesota Statute Section 542.16, and in juvenile delinquency cases with Minnesota Rules of Delinquency Procedure 22.03. And that's also June 9th, 2023. And it's signed by Becky Branch, who's a court administrator in Winona County District Court. Now, I don't have any reason here. It doesn't say why they were assigned a new judge, but were. Now, this is a certificate of representation. So Zachary Bauer hereby represents Adam Taylor Fravel, the above named defendant, on the following matter or matters before the court. And it is charges of second-degree murder ×2. And he understands that he cannot withdraw from this representation unless said withdrawal is approved by the court. After hearing on a written motion pursuant to Rule 703 of the General Rules of Practice for the District Courts, and that's submitted by Mesh, Besher, and Spence. Now, this is interesting to me because out here we have a lot of advertising for Mesh, Besher, and Spence, but they are primarily personal injury attorneys. I didn't know that their reputation was that of defending somebody on a murder charge. That's not what they advertise they do. So it's interesting. And the demand for disclosure says that the state of Minnesota versus Adam Taylor Fravel, they want the defendant in the above entitled action through his attorney to demand the prosecuting agency make available to the defendant's attorney for examination, inspection, and copying the following information in possession and control of the prosecuting agency. They want any writings and videos or audio recordings made by the police regarding the arrest incident, including but not limited to police reports, police logs, notes taken, or recordings made by the police of any conversations had with prosecution witnesses, any notes made by a police officer to be used during the trial, any photographs or video recordings, and the time and the name of the officer who gave the defendant a Miranda warning, all written statements made by the defendant, any notes the police may have taken during conversations with the defendants before, during, or after the arrest, any transcripts containing statements made by the defendant, and any tape recordings made of the defendant's statements. All warrants executed in connection with the case, including the application for such warrants. They want those, the right to inspect and copy or photograph all items taken from any premises occupied by the defendant as a result of any search, regardless of whether the items was listed on the search warrant return, and any reports made by any laboratory, such as criminalistics laboratory, concerning any examination made by any physical, photographic, or written evidence related to the defendant's case, the names and addresses of all of the following persons: all witnesses having knowledge of the defendant's offense, all persons interviewed by the prosecuting attorney's office and its agents, to the sheriff's department or any law enforcement agency in relation to the case, all witnesses whom the prosecution expects to call to testify, and all written statements or recorded statements and or transcripts of statements made by witnesses or other persons which relate to the case. And if no statements have been made, then a summary of testimony expected to be given by each witness, and that's signed by Zachary Bauer at Mesh, Besher and Spence. And they are down there in Rochester. They've got a stated address there. And then we have over here, and we have, this is the waiver of extradition and agreement to return. So we have this on June 9th, and it's the state of Minnesota versus Adam Taylor Fravel. And it says, I, Adam Taylor Fravel, in consideration of being granted the privilege to be released from custody of Winona County law enforcement agencies on conditions set by the court, I hereby agree that I will keep my attorney and the court informed of my whereabouts at all times and will not leave the state of Minnesota during the pendency of this matter. That I will comply with all of the conditions and promises of any bond hereinbefore filled by me in this matter and all other conditions of my release. That I will, when duly instructed by the court, the Winona County attorney, the Winona City attorney, or my defense attorney, promptly return to the city of Winona at any time for appearance in defense of this action. Number 4, that I do hereby waive extradition to the state of Minnesota from any jurisdiction in or outside the United States where I may be found, and also agree that I will not contest any effort by jurisdiction to return me to the state of Minnesota. And 5, that failure to comply with any of the above provisions will be a violation of the terms and conditions of my release, which may be grounds for causing an issuance of an order for my apprehension, forfeiture of my bond, and further make me a fugitive from justice. Okay. And that's 6/9/2023. And this waiver shall be effective only when signed by defendant and required as a condition of a defendant's release. And should defendant secure unconditional release by posting bail, bond, or otherwise, this waiver shall not be valid even though signed by defendant. Okay. So what do we have here? We have an appointment of a special assistant in Winona County Attorney. Pursuant to Minnesota statute, I hereby appoint Philip D. Propowitz as a special assistant Winona County Attorney, commencing per date below. Said appointment is valid until rescinded by the underside. Signed, and this was in the 13th of April. And the reason why it was not clear, but at this point in the investigation, so 2 weeks in it at April, they did announce that on the news. They said that they appointed a special assistant. Basically, I don't know if that the town of Winona is not prepared to handle a trial like this, or why they appointed a special county attorney. I don't know why, but they did. So they've got that, and he was sworn in to discharge the duties of the Office of Special Assistant Winona County Attorney to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God. And that was in April 13th. Okay. Now, this was the release order. Okay. Adam Taylor Fravel is being charged with the following. This was his release order. He's being charged with the following: murder in the second degree and murder in the second degree. It is ordered that the defendant shall be released upon the following. Adam Taylor Fravel, June 9, 2023. Post bail or bond with no conditions for $2 million. To post bail or bond with conditions for $1 million. Remain law-abiding and of good behavior. To make and maintain contact with attorney. To keep the court and attorney informed of current address. Make all future court appearances. Sorry, there's somebody sitting outside my house. I'm looking. I'm like, what do you need here? Do you ever have anybody just do that? So this is basically, this is the release order with the bail and what it would be if they were released. What is this person doing here? Maybe they're lost. Maybe they're lost. Well, they just peeled off. Let's just hope that it was somebody who was lost and not. If you guys are watching my other videos, you might have a pretty good idea of who might have just stopped in front of my house. Oh, anyway, this is saying that the next court appearance was scheduled for July 20th. And it's an omnibus hearing. And then we have over here the state's notice of evidence and identification pursuit. So I don't, because the above named defendant and or his attorney. State's notice of evidence and identification pursuit. Okay, so we've got evidence against the defendant obtained as a result of the search and seizure, confessions, admissions. Okay, so they want everything. State's notice of evidence and identification procedures pursuant to Rule 701. Okay. And then we've got the state's request for disclosure by defendant. Okay. This is all just everything pretty basic, getting ready to prepare for trial. Now, what do we have here? This is a notice of motion and motion requesting discovery protective order. Okay. We've been talking about that a lot this week. To the district court judge and Zach Bauer, the defendant's attorney, please take notice that the state of Minnesota is requesting a protective order for discovery in this case, and the defense does not object. And the motion states, the state of Minnesota has identified that the investigation in this case includes information created by law enforcement agencies that includes information that may be considered confidential, private, or non-public order under the Minnesota Data Practices Act. Redacting such information for discovery in this case would require considerable resources and be likely to substantially delay the necessary disclosure of law enforcement investigative reports as required by the Minnesota Rules of Criminal Procedure. Minnesota Rules of Criminal Procedures, Rule 9.03, if my brain is gone, subsection 5 allows the court to issue a protective discovery order. The state proposed to the defense the option of a protective order that would provide Mr. Bauer and his legal assistants the information, but prohibit disclosure of the information at issue to the defendant and other third parties without an additional court order. Mr. Bauer indicated that a protective order that allows himself and his staff access would be fine from his perspective. The state therefore requests that the court issue the proposed discovery order. Given the agreement of the parties and the need for timely disclosures, the state is asking that this proposed order issue without a hearing. Okay. So whatever that is, that is. Now, we have another order, and they want it's just basically saying the same thing as that. Got this too. That's a duplicate. Okay. There's still some interesting stuff in here. I swear we have to get past this basic stuff. Okay. Now, let's see here. Notice by prosecuting attorney of intent to seek an aggravated sentence pursuant to Rule 703. Okay. So, to the District Court of the 3rd Judicial District in Adam Taylor Fravel, the defendant through Zach Bauer, the defendant's attorney. Please take notice pursuant to Rule 703 of the Minnesota Rules of Criminal Procedure that the prosecuting attorney intends to seek an aggravated sentence in this matter. Okay. The state relies upon the following grounds and or statutes as support for the aggravated sentence without limitation. The victim was treated with particular cruelty for which the offender should be held responsible. Minnesota Statute 244.10, subsection 5A to Minnesota Sentencing Guidelines. The defendant concealed the deceased's body. State versus Hicks in 864 NW 2D 153 through 159 in Minnesota 2015. That the concealment of a homicide victim's body in and of itself may be an aggravating factor under the sentencing guidelines that supports an upward durational departure. State versus Griller 583 NW 2D 736 in Minnesota 1998, and State versus Folkers 581 NW 2D 321 in Minnesota 1998. Okay. These theories are based without limitation on the following factual grounds. The defendant concealed the deceased's body. The deceased's, look at the way they put this. They're putting a plural there, and it's difficult. The deceased body, it should just be the deceased body, was left in an isolated area off a road with signs reading dead end and minimum maintenance road in rural Minnesota. The body was wrapped in a sheet partially encapsulated by a culvert and appeared to have been covered by wooden debris. Madeline Kingsbury was reported missing on March 31st, 2023. Her body was located June 7th, 2023. Her loved ones, including family and friends, spent 69 days not knowing whether she was alive or dead. They were deprived of saying their final goodbyes in a timely manner before her body started decomposing after spending 69 days concealed in the woods. Moreover, Ms. Kingsbury's children, both under the age of 7, were left in a state of confusion and uncertainty as they did not know where their mother was, what happened to their mother, or why they couldn't spend time with her for 69 days before someone could attempt the heart-wrenching task of explaining to them that their mother was dead. This notice also incorporates the facts in the criminal complaint for 85 TAC CR TAC 23 TAC 937. The state is not limited to the factors expressly stated in the sentencing guidelines when providing reasonable notice of intent to seek an aggravated sentence. Minnesota Statute 244 TAC .10 in sub dated June 30th, 2023, respectfully submitted from Karen Sonneman. Okay. Now, it says that they've got a discovery packet that's going to come with 400 pages. Now, in here, the next part is the application with all of the details. And I'd like to, let's see. Yeah, let's do that in part 2. Let's take this part and say, okay, we've got a feel for what's going on. We know more than we did. And my heart breaks because it's just, this was every girl's best friend. She was so cute. This curly brown hair, all of the pictures that have came out. She's just always smiling. Just seemed like the best friend that everybody wished that they had. And just so smart for being so young. She had her life all in order, and I think he was jealous. I really do. So with that being said, I'm going to call this number 1 and just kind of regroup. I don't like this man. I don't like what he did. And I need a little time before I go into more of what he did. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. If you want to buy me coffee, my Cash App is Tabitha Jane 13. And I will do the next part very soon. I'll try to do that tomorrow so that so we'll have everything up to date for Madeline Kingsbury, and then I'll go back to the other story that I was working on earlier this week, okay? And I thank you again. Thank you. Bye-bye.